Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Freshly Pressed. Today we have with us Steve and Vaughn from the team Atrium. Welcome to the show, team.
How you
Hey
doing?
guys, how you doing?
So, in your own words, can you guys give a brief introduction about yourself and, tell us about your origins as a comic creator and, as a comic book fan as well, as kids, what books you liked and, how did you get into comics in the first place?
Vaughn, you want to take this first, or you want me to go
Okay,
first?
I'll go first then. Yeah.
Sure.
So full name Von Joseph. Yeah. So I've been general origins, I guess the origins of a villain. I I started collecting comics. Actually, I started collecting comics from my cousin when I first got to Canada. He had a bunch of X Men, and I used to sneak in his room and read his books mostly. And then after kind of realizing that it's pretty cool stories. Um, I I started going to the comic store, and that's got what got me into comics pretty regularly. So my first love, and I've always collected X Men up until probably the late '90s, early 2000s, and that's when I started tapering off a little bit, just in regards to life, and you grow up, so things get in the way of getting to the comic store each week in regards to that stuff. So those are the books that I read quite a bit. Um, and that's really like I read a lot of stuff, but X Men's kind of my go-to right now these days. Though I'm not really reading X Men. I'm reading more a lot of the image stuff, a lot of the indie stuff as well too. Now being in the indie sphere, trying to create your own publishing kind of label, I've been trying to delve into what makes an indie book a good indie book, and what type of things that we need to do to kind of excel to the next level as an indie publisher. Um, just a little bit about me. So my background is design. So I am more well. I help with everything, but I'm more like behind the scenes. I do a lot of the production stuff in regards to getting stuff ready for print, all the pre-press stuff, production, web stuff as well too. My actual day job is a web designer, so that's my day job that I do.
Ah,
So
nice.
that kind of goes in. But I started doing. I was in print for a number of years before I got into web stuff. So I have a little bit of knowledge across the board. And then me and Steve have been kind of doing. We just kind of pushed forward on this, but we've been working together for a number of years. We had started more like a pop culture website underneath the same name, Comics Asylum, and that's why we have Comics Asylum Publishing as well too. And this is something that we've always wanted to do over the years, and then we kind of finally pulled the trigger. This has been a labor of love in the works in some type of iteration, one way or the other, for probably over 10 years, Atrium, and this is what it's become now as a whole. So that's kind of my cliff notes about me
Nice.
on that.
And as far as I'm concerned, my name's Steve. Last name Bino, so Steve Bino, and I'm a retired teacher. So I taught,
Ah,
I guess, since about the late '90s, and I taught grade school kids. So K to 6 teacher. Basically stayed at the same school for the entire time, and had a great time doing it. But I've had a lifelong love of comics, and like Vaughn, mine was kickstarted by my cousins. They were a few years older than I was, and they liked Iron Man, Thor. Avengers, Superman, and so I would just kind of read their books. And just because of the age I was, a lot of Spider-Man cartoons were on. I think the '60s cartoon was in like full rotation at that point. So I started reading Spider-Man books, and then I just remember heading over to like the local convenience stores. There was one called
Hmm.
Becker's and another one called Max Milk, and this was in the day when like books were like 10 cents, 25 cents. So you could walk away with like 8 books, 12 books,
Yeah.
and not break the bank, right?
Yes,
So
exactly.
from that, I also then gravitated towards the Incredible Hulk, and then I guess I used to watch them on TV as well too because they were shows in the late '70s, and then became a huge Teen Titans fan. Again, thanks to my cousin
Uh,
Spencer. Yeah. So after the love of comics bit me, I would then just draw in my spare time. And then as I got older, I kept collecting and I draw my own books. And I always had the desire to be a comic book creator. But then I decided to go into teaching, which is an incredibly more stable profession. But it allowed me to kind of work on my craft in the summers. And I joined a local studio here. And we worked on toy design for Hasbro. We did stuff for Star
wow.
Wars and Transformers. And we did some comic book work for Image as well, too. Book called Rising Stars. And some DC work,
Nice.
and the studio unfortunately didn't pan out. But around the time that Vaughn and I were thinking of starting Comics Asylum, we also still had that bug where we wanted to create our own books, and we just decided, what, let's give it a shot. And it's a what is it? What do you call it? The overnight success that takes like 10 years. So that's been our journey.
Wow. Your guys' journey is very inspirational, to be honest. Like, especially for a lot of creators. A lot of creators listen to our show, and for them to see somebody from like transitioning from one career to into comics full time is such an inspiration, because that's their dream. That's the ultimate dream for a lot of people, right? So kudos to you guys. You've done great.
Trying,
Um,
trying.
Well, that's how indie comics goes. We got to try, right?
Yeah.
And we're going to do all these things ourselves.
Hmm.
Things that takes armies of people at a
Do you?
studio. Yeah. So yeah. Awesome. Tell us a bit about the comic Atrium, and what is it about? What's the story, without obviously spoiling it?
So for anyone who's new to Atrium, it's our indie comic book that we created. It's been about 10 years since we've been developing it, but we kickstarted it last November for issue one, and it's about two paramedics, Naomi and Darnell, who are tasked with delivering a donor heart to a mysterious but important patient. They're accompanied by their security detail, but en route to the hospital, they're attacked by a group of deadly assassins who turn out to be vampires.
Wow. That sounds like a very, very interesting premise. Yeah. Awesome. So we're at issue 5 and 6 here. Is that right?
Four and
Four and
five.
five. 4 and 5.
4 and 5. Okay. So these are like the final issues of this story arc.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Nice. Awesome. So how, like, tell us a bit about some of the rewards and reward tiers in this campaign that you have for people.
We have, I guess, two reward tiers for issue four and two for five. And so basically, you can get the digital versions if digital
Hmm.
is the way that you want to go. But you can also get the copies in print. And then if you ever if you pledge for the physical copy, you automatically get a digital copy as well. So there's going to be a
Nice.
cover A and a cover B for issue four, and a cover A and cover B for issue five. The first cover for issue four will be done by our interior artist, Lucas Falapi, and then he is going to also then have a painted version for 4B. He'll do the cover for 4A, which he's still working on, and then we've been very lucky that we got a renowned artist, Marco Rudy, sorry, to
Yep.
do our variant for 4B for 5B, sorry. And
Nice.
so those are some of the
Nice.
reward tiers. And then if you haven't been up to date with the campaigns from the start, you can also then, as add-ons, get issues 1, 2, and 3, and those add-ons include various variant covers that we had for the
Hmm.
previous issues, as well as two specialty variants, which we only printed 50 copies of each. Which one is a black and white version of issue 2A, and then
Right.
we have a foil version, which is a blood foil version,
Nice.
which is from issue 3B. Correct me if I'm wrong, Vaughn, on that one.
Yeah, there's three. Yeah, three.
Yeah, and so you can get those all in that print bundle. But even
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
you just want to pick up a couple of issues to catch up, you can pick up 4 and 5, and then you can get one or two copies of the previous issues. You don't have to get a whole bundle; you can just get them one by one.
Yeah, individually as needed.
Nice. Nice. Tell me something. Like, what do you guys think about, like, do you guys pack uh like foil covers and all these like amazing fancy stuff? Because I love backing them. I love collecting some of these things. I love like the metal covers and the foil covers that are getting more and more popular now. What are your favorite, like some of like these rewards that you pack on other campaigns?
I think the foil ones are. I like the foil ones. The thing sometimes with the foil ones is just sometimes the art gets lost in some of the foil ones that some of the guys do. So maybe the art snob in me. Sometimes I'm a little bit picky in regards to the foil ones that I want to get, right? Because sometimes when you see them represented, you can't even distinguish what's the art versus what's the foil cover, right? So that's
Yeah.
really where I try. I like the ones that are a little bit of a mix, and that's what we kind of did, where there's a one individual item that's on the cover that might be a foil representation. I.e., like what we did was we did there was a blood reflection in the cover, and then we did
Mm,
all the blood in foil. So that stands out
nice.
from all the other items of the normal foil. So it's just a little bit unique in that sense. So I would like to do more of that type of stuff. But I like the idea of foil. Foil was actually it's funny. I dug out a foil cover mine just this weekend because I was at a con. We were tabling at a convention
Yeah.
for an old artist that he had done a foil cover. So I had to
Oh
go
wow.
find that one and get it signed. So I got Bart Sears, classic old artist, to sign my Turok cover, and that was a foil
That's
cover as well too.
fantastic. Yeah,
So
that's fantastic.
yeah, some of them are done really, really well. Some of them are a little bit more hinky. Like some of the Marvel ones back in the day, I think they had some runs in the late '80s, early '90s that were
Yeah.
really gimmicky, and those were a little bit much. But I think now the medium's kind of refined a little bit more. So I think right now there's a lot of guys doing some really some cool foil ones, like the Coffin Comics guys. They're doing some really
Mm,
nice stuff, right? Some
Yeah,
high grade and different types of foil too. Like they're doing like black metal foils and stuff that I've never seen before, right? Kind of really unique to the idea that with the gothic theme that they're trying to emphasize with their stuff. So it's really unique. So
yeah.
yeah. When I was collecting, I was not a big fan of the holographic ones. They just never
Uh,
seemed to take the image properly. And so I'm like you, Vaughn. I was big on foils, and then
mhm.
if any kind of like wraparound or gatefold cover, I like
Yeah,
that kind of stuff.
oh, yeah, the gatefold covers are great. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Yeah. I think like what you both of you guys said, like you know, you can't be lazy with these things. You can't just use the same kind of image for like to get the right effect in these covers, right? Because you have to tailor it to that particular cover type. Like I've seen some metal covers that are like it just feels like it was the print cover and they just used it for metal,
yeah,
and it
just
just
for the
comes
alternative.
out
Yeah,
disappointing.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, because you have to change your, like, you know, colors and everything to that particular medium. So
Mhm.
yeah. Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
I also think
Yeah.
too, and Vaughn, you can correct me if I'm a little bit offside on this one. You also have to be lucky enough to have or connect with a really good printer, because sometimes what is there in theory doesn't always happen in execution.
Yeah.
So if the printer isn't able to kind of get what you're trying to put across with the design, then you can also run into trouble where things don't quite match what you're looking for.
Oh, totally. And a lot of it's just like a standard. I've seen some of the ones or some of the guys when we were shopping around printers, they send us samples, and some of it's just a standard. This is the foil, but all the foil was just a sheet that's stuck on top of the cover, right? And then they just print on top of it. It's really weird, right? So there's no
Yeah.
really uniqueness about it. So you got to be really particular, and that's where maybe
Mm,
going to a like a press printer versus just a digital, like some of the digital guys are printing stuff digitally, you can really see the difference in regards to the quality of the foil or the stamp on the point, the thickness of the
yeah.
book that you're doing it on, right? Comes into play really heavily.
Yeah. Yeah. That's very true. That's very true. I think like they also it also depends on the paper stock as well, right?
Yeah, for
Like
sure.
yeah. Yeah, it's very it's such a fascinating business. Like small details matter so much.
Oh, for sure.
Um, yeah.
The learning curve from campaign one to the current one that we just launched this afternoon
Mhm.
has been exponential because making the book is one thing, but then
Yeah.
fulfillment, tracking down the right printer, finding out what's the best way to mail it, how do you pack the books for mailing. So we use Gemini mailers, and then I was
Yep.
fortunate enough to be following Jimmy Palmiotti on social media, and he had suggested putting, because when he does his Kickstarters, he puts them in like a weatherproof bag, and therefore
Ah,
your books don't get wet and aren't exposed to the elements.
that's
So
very
it's all those
nice.
things that like you don't think of when you're getting into it at first, but then there are things that just come up every once in a while, and you're like, ooh, just out of the blue that you're not expecting.
Yeah. Also, with the byproduct of us being up here in the snowy Canadas, um, we have to kind of keep that in consideration all the time.
Yeah.
That's very true. And
Mm.
like if you're shipping to people in the US as well, there's a lot of you know it's pretty similar, right?
Yeah.
In that regard.
Yeah.
And for backers like us, I get I get books shipped from Canada to Australia as well at times, and you have to send books to the other side of the world. They need to be protected really well.
Oh,
So
totally.
yeah,
Yeah, for sure.
I also like as a backer, I truly appreciate when a creator is proud of like it almost feels like creators are proud of their work when they give that little extra care to the product, because then backers feel really good. They feel like the product has been loved by the creator themselves, and yeah, it's just that feeling that gives the creator can go an extra mile to deliver a great product, and we're like, yes, that's good, that's a creator, we want to come back and back again.
Oh yeah,
So
like I totally agree with that point because when you have people that are backing you through crowdfunding, not everyone has a name or comes in with some any kind of like comic book cachet. So they're really taking a chance on supporting you. And we, like Vaughn and I, are eternally grateful for all of our backers. Atrium would not be where it is or even exist if it wasn't for them. And the last thing you want to do is disappoint them when you give them the product.
yeah, yeah, I think one of the first campaigns that I backed was actually from Nova Scotia, and the guy basically, how they have those soft mailers. Uh,
Yeah.
he just put the comic in a soft mailer and sent it, and I'm like, I know, I like it. It could have been damaged on the way, or
Mhm.
hundreds of things could have happened. Fortunately, that didn't happen. But and I was obviously willing to give them a bit of a pass, saying like, yeah, that's their first time. They'll learn,
Yeah.
uh, but yeah, if it becomes a habit, and it keeps repeating, then it's a problem.
Mhm. Oh, for sure. I get what you mean. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
much can go wrong traveling around the world in a
Hmm.
mail bag or a
exactly,
mail truck.
exactly,
Yeah.
Hmm.
exactly. Perfect. So tell me about what's your writing process? How did you plan the arc for Atrium, and what's like did you write like all the whole skeleton for the whole arc, or how did you work on that framework for the story?
Well, Vaughn and I and our co-creators, Gregory Parkin and Peter Van Horn, we brainstormed the story and have been basically working on it for a few years. and we knew where we wanted it to start, and we knew how we wanted it to end, but we weren't quite sure how to get from point A to point B. And what we did was we actually had a few iterations of the story because we were working with other artists at the time, and the artist is a huge part of the creative process, and we just didn't see eye to eye on how we wanted to finish it. So we actually had to like strip it down, and we were right on the cusp of being able to like even consider pitching it or doing crowdfunding. And we did a total tear down and kind of worked on, okay, if we can shift it this way, we can tell a different kind of story. And basic what we did was we just went back and put the beats in for what we wanted to do. A good friend of ours suggested that we kind of maybe move one of the like action pieces to the front and then get back to it. That's so the story kind of has more jump at the beginning, and you see this a lot in movies as well too. But as we were working on it, it was a very kind of organic and fluid sort of process. And it was kind of to get to the point where it's like, okay, do we do this as one book or do we do this as a graphic novel? But then you look at the production costs of doing a graphic novel, and then how do you ask for that amount to make that when you're crowdsourcing? It's a big ask for someone to give you that kind
It
of money,
is.
especially
Yeah.
when you don't have a name, right? Like if Vaughn or Peter or myself had have worked for one of the big two or Image or something like that, it's a little bit easier to kind of go down that road. But really, the only professional that's part of the team, it's Nikos Koutsis and Mike Torres, who are colorists, and they're located in Greece, and they work on Savage Dragon for Image
Mm,
Comics.
mm.
But and Vaughn, you can back me up on this one. It's kind of interesting that the colorists can make or break a book, just like lettering or whatever. But no one, as far as I know, celebrates a colorist this in the same manner that they do a writer or an artist. So even with Nikos's name recognition and working on such a high profile book for so long, it would have been a tough ask for people to shell out for a graphic novel. So we decided to go the route of single issues, and the way that the story was constructed, we were able to kind of go old school, a little bit of a serial way of doing it, where every issue ends on a cliffhanger. And I guess it's
Ah,
kind of like the old school books too. I remember, going to pick up an issue of Spider-Man or Hulk or whatever, and at the end of every issue, it was like, okay, I got to wait 4 weeks to get the end of this story.
Yeah, tune
That's
in next
nuts.
week,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I think DC used to do it like bi-weekly, so like
Yeah,
Batman would come out every 2 weeks. But
yes.
yeah, it was one of those cases where it's a different age now with streaming, and so that kind of a anticipation for what's next. We nowadays we just wait for like when's the next season coming, and sometimes that's like 3 years
yeah,
if you're doing a TV show.
yeah. The level of consumption and turnaround time is we consume more, but the turnaround time is longer
Yeah,
in regards to the
Mm,
production time and stuff now. So it's interesting how that's happened, right? Because also the polish level as well too is at a different degree, right? We're not putting out
that is true.
22 episodes of, you know, 3 episodes of fluff or whatever, right? Or some stuff. So it's a lot more, people are a little bit more discerning in regards to what they're watching or what they're consuming. So I think that it goes to why the turnaround time for some of these things are so much longer versus what we
Yeah.
were before. Even just comics, sometimes you'll have comic books that have been delayed for 6 months plus now, based on the artist is slower because they take more time in their production process, right? Versus some of these guys were at one point in time, you had some guys at Marvel doing a bi-weekly book, right? Yeah, they had like
yeah,
probably like a 4 month leeway time ahead of time, but still, that's still a lot of work sometimes, right?
Oh
yeah. And
yeah.
when
Oh
you
yeah.
and when you get
I've
into the
seen.
oh, sorry, go
Oh,
ahead.
sorry, Steve. Go for it. Go for it. No,
No, I
go
was
for
just
it.
saying, when you get into the indie scene and you're crowdsourcing your own books, the one thing that Vaughn and I and the rest of the team didn't want to get into was, asking people to back the book and then having that long wait time between the end of the campaign and fulfillment. We
Mm,
basically are asking for or starting our campaigns when we're probably like 70 to 80% finished production, that so by the time the campaign's over, the book's done, and then we just have to get it printed and sent out.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's actually a great thought, and I think a lot of, and like you said correctly, Vaughn, I think a lot of time books take really long because, like obviously we all have lives, and
Yeah.
there things happen, and
Yeah.
artists are really busy. We had this period. I think this was earlier this year or last year when we were talking. The whole community was talking about artists getting overworked, and they have like there's a
Yeah,
constant issue about like artists developing problems with their hands because they work such long hours and they get paid such less
Yeah.
for that kind of time as well. So like it's amazing. It's great that you guys are doing that because obviously it's a risky thing because you have to pay money out of your pocket and campaigns
Yeah.
are not guaranteed to be successful, and you're taking that risk on yourself.
Yeah.
But it's also taking care of both the backers and the artists on the book. So
Yeah.
kudos to you guys.
Right now, I think we're done for, like all the art's done for. We haven't sent it to coloring yet, but all the four is done. And then he's in the middle of five right now.
yeah,
Right.
Wow.
and
So,
the images we're getting, they're pretty cool. Like he's laid out the entire book. We've seen everything. He's just now putting in like just tightening up stuff, and we're
Mhm.
like, hmm. And I will admit, like I've gone over this script a million times. Peter's gone over it a million times, but then when especially like when we're starting to connect what he gives us to what we've written in terms of like, okay, do we have to shift any dialogue or whatever? And I'm just reading through the book almost, and it's almost like a first cut sort of
mhm,
Yeah.
way of looking at it. I'm like, yo, man, this is reading really good. This is like I'm kind of getting hyped for it, and that's
mhm.
after me seeing the story and knowing exactly how it ends. But it's just the process and how the reader is going to be going into it that I'm excited for.
Yeah. Yeah. It's fantastic what an additional collaborator like an artist can do to your story, right? It just brings it to life in such a different way. It just
Yeah.
breathes a whole new dimension into it. So yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've been lucky.
That Yeah, that's the magic of creating comic books. You can see the whole things coming to life in front of your eyes, and that's the beauty of it. And I like you said correctly earlier as well. Coloring is such an underrated skill, even more so than coloring. Actually, doing flats is such an underrated skill. Uh, it's also a very thankless job that nobody wants to do. Like doing flats is tiring and boring for most people, but it's such an important thing. If you don't do it correctly, you can completely mess up both the coloring and production of the book. So,
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
And that's why we kind of opted the way of, we'll front run the cost as much as we can in regards to the production side of it, to get the quality that we want. And like I said, we're lucky enough that we need to some mutual friends, Nikos and those guys, and Mike, the colors from Savage Dragon. So they were nice enough to say that they would take it on as a project to give us the level of colors that we have, and just in our pop culture surroundings and Comic Con hopping, we were able to meet some rather great our local artists. Some of them we know, some of them we've interviewed for our pop culture page as well too, our YouTube
oh,
pop
nice.
culture page. So that's helped us quite a bit as well to be able to get like Marco Rudy, who's the cover artist, the secondary cover artist for issue 5. That's a great cover, and
yeah,
we met him, I think at Montreal Comic Con a number of
yeah.
years
A few
ago.
years ago.
Yeah,
Yeah,
pre-pandemic, I guess you could say.
yeah. I interviewed him pre-pan or during the pandemic when
Yeah,
everything was
Wow.
weird, right?
yeah,
Where we only saw each other through screens,
yeah.
and
And here we are again, right? But yeah,
yeah,
so
yeah. But at least it's voluntary this time,
yeah,
right?
voluntary, yeah,
You
not
know.
mandatory. Yeah,
But no, like the one thing that Vaughn's exactly correct is that we've been able to kind of make some connections in the art community, both locally and internationally, and it's very interesting because you would think, oh, maybe someone wouldn't want to work with us because we're not on the map, right?
Hmm.
But you send them the book, and then they're like, "Oh, this is actually kind of cool," or you develop a rapport with them, and if you can agree on a price, then you're good to go. And we were very fortunate. We've had some great, not only the main team, but also some of the people that have been working on the book with variant covers throughout the run of the miniseries. They have delivered some spectacular artwork, and the book
Yeah.
has just been the beneficiary of it. And Vaughn will attest to this. When we're at a show, the gallery of color of covers
Yeah.
really captures the attention of people that walk by our
Nice.
booth or our stand,
Yeah.
and then they have trouble trying to figure out which cover to pick,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And yeah, so it's one of those things where if you have the right talent and there's enough passion and everything is kind of like just moving in the right direction, you can really make an impact.
Yeah. Yeah. We just finished our one of our local Comic Cons. Actually, we just had 2 weekends back to back. We did
Oh
London
wow.
Comic Con, London, Ontario. We
Mm.
just did a Comic Con there with that had
Kevin Eastman.
Kevin Eastman, which is his only.
Fantastic.
I think that was his only North American.
No, Canadian, because
His only
he was in
Canadian
Massachusetts or
in
New Hampshire.
Massachusetts.
Sorry, last
Yeah.
weekend.
And so he did that one. Then we were just at Hamilton in Ontario as well too,
Mm.
my hometown. We just did a con there as well too. So we're getting to the end of our con season, but our first, I guess our first half of our con season this year, we only had
Mm.
issue one, and
Hmm.
then around May, June, we had two and three. So we've been going since, and we're getting to the end of our con season technically right now. We have a couple more like in-store signings and single day ones where we're kind of winding down right now. I think we're at the total of 13 or 14 cons we've done this year so far.
Yeah,
Right. So
That's fantastic.
yeah, we went pretty hard with the cons and the locals. Just get the word out there,
Yep.
try to show as much as we can, and try to promote as much as we can. Right. So that's the whole idea about it all. Right.
yeah, and
Yeah.
also
Yeah.
being on shows such as yours, where we get a chance to meet new people, introduce people to the world of Atrium that would not necessarily be in their scope. And we have had a great time. We've traveled to the States. We've been different points in Canada, and even some of our international backers. And I think we've had a couple of backers from Australia for issue one.
Yeah.
And we are eternally grateful. The feedback has been amazing, and it's one of those things where, especially from number one, you put it out there, you're not quite sure. Like you think you have a
Yeah.
good product, but you're not quite sure, and then you get the feedback, and then at the end of a con or at the end of a day, Vaughn and I might be sitting over dinner or on the drive back home, and just like, I think we got something. Like the feedback was that was kind of cool feedback. Oh, they said it was
Yeah. Yeah.
cinematic, or they like this, and so it gives you confidence to then kind of like push forward and know that you're and to trust yourself as a storyteller and
Yeah.
as comic book producers, right? That you're actually
Yeah.
going in the right direction.
No, I think it takes a lot of guts to actually put something out there in the world, in general. Like, so it's great that you took that first step with issue one, and like I can see that you've had such already in this, like, this year. You said like this 1 year you've come finished like 4 or 5 issues. That's a huge journey in itself, right? And you kept learning and you kept doing things, you kept improving things and things like that. So like kudos to you guys, like you have done great, like it's already a huge journey,
Oh, thank you. Thank
forward.
you.
So
Thank you, appreciate that.
We wanted to, one of the things that we kind of wanted to focus on with the book, and we wanted to make sure that we tried to do was we didn't want people perpetually waiting as well too.
mm,
So there's a lot of that, and I don't know. I'm not trying to speak to anything. It's just like sometimes you get books and it gets done, and then it's now the year before it gets shipped out, right?
You
yeah,
forgot
There's
that
a
you
lot of
wrote
that we
it.
didn't want to do, or like the series never technically ends, where
Yeah,
you'll have creators that do a number one of a book that's a story that they had in their mind, and then you're
yeah,
waiting and waiting, and then you'll see them create a second book, which is another number one, versus finishing the series that they already started, right? So we didn't want to do that, right? We
yeah,
wanted to kind of make sure that we had something that's self-enclosed and that comes to an end as well too, because we didn't want to do an ongoing of any sort on Kickstarter kind of thing,
Yeah.
right? But we wanted to make sure it's a surefire, self-contained book that people could read and enjoy down the line as a graphic novel that would really resonate with people.
Very true. Very true. And like this is one of the conversations I had with a lot of people at, like, I also tabled at a lot of cons this year,
Yeah,
and one of the conversations I had with a lot of people was around, like, people come in and see, oh, is this issue one? Is there an issue two? And I'm like, no, not yet. And they're like, yeah. I'm skeptical of picking up issue one because I don't know when issue two will come out. And if I end up liking issue one, it's even more frustrating because I have to wait for another 2 years to get to issue two. So yeah, it's a very real problem.
No, it's no, you're exactly right. And
yeah,
the thing about it too is that you end up losing momentum
yeah,
for the audience. And we kind of, in a way, we lucked into the way that we decided to lay out the 5 issues as well as go into production, because I was watching, and the name of it escapes me now, but I was watching a YouTube channel, and they were just going through best practices for Kickstarters.
Hmm.
And one of the main stumbling blocks for anyone who's doing a Kickstarter is the shipping cost on the backer. And since we knew we were going to do 5 issues, we were like, okay, so the first issue, if you're going worldwide, it costs X amount. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's like 5X to what the book costs, right? As part of the Kickstarter
yeah,
for shipping. And you're like, so I'm paying 5 times for shipping just to get the book. It's kind of a bit of an imbalance. And so we decided to, instead of doing 5 Kickstarters, we do 3. So we did one to introduce it, and then we would put 2 and 3 together to save our backers on shipping. And then
Ah,
we could do 4 and 5 together to
that's
save them
very
on shipping
nice.
as well too.
yeah.
So instead of spending, say, maybe $80 in shipping for 5 issues, depending on where in the world you are,
Mhm.
especially if you're overseas from Canada, you can probably only have to spend 30 to $40 on
Ah,
shipping.
Yeah, I
Compared,
literally just backed a project before I got on here, and I think the book was 30, and I think I paid 60 in shipping.
yeah,
Right, so
yeah,
yeah.
so
Yeah.
yeah,
No, I think I picked up a book from actually a fellow Canadian of yours recently, Pesto Comics.
oh
yeah,
Do
yes,
that's
you know
stuff.
that?
Yeah,
yeah.
we
Yeah.
were just at the car with him. Yeah,
We were hanging out with them
Yeah.
this weekend.
yeah, great guy,
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
great guy.
Great guy, yeah. I
Yeah,
picked up Crazy Latte Thing Called Love, and
yeah,
yes, yeah,
I think he found out a great way to ship. I think they gave him a fixed cost for shipping, and to be honest, for me, I was surprised for like 10 Canadian dollars. I was actually able to ship from Canada to Australia. So it was like,
yeah. 10,
that,
10 to Australia seems really cheap. That's great.
yeah.
That's
That's
great.
great.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
So I think like you guys are doing something fantastic with this, where you're actually thinking about shipping costs for backers and doing these. It does require a whole lot of planning and a lot more investment up front, but great for backers because they'll get 2 issues together. And one of the other things that this kind of silently addresses is when you finish an issue, like a comics is what, like 24 pages, 26 pages, or like 30 pages, right? You're like, oh, I packed this, I waited for months to get this, and then I'm just done in like 15 minutes.
yeah,
Yeah,
That's like
yeah.
yeah.
if I get 2 issues, that's double the satisfaction, I would say.
There was there's a guy at the con that said the same thing this weekend. He purposely was like, okay, you know what? Let me get all 3 issues because that's at least a good amount of reading
Yeah,
versus just getting the one, right? At least I can
Yes.
sit down and get a hefty amount of reading in one sitting, and I feel pretty good about it as a whole.
Yeah.
Versus like it's always a classic situation. I remember as a kid, you get that book and be like, okay, you would bang through that book in like 15 minutes, and it end on like this crazy cliffhanger, and then you'd be like, God damn it! Now I got to wait a whole other month. Or if you're in the 90s now and you read a book and it was one of the image books, you didn't know when you're getting that book. I remember reading the end of Battle Chasers, I think it was
Uh,
8, and then we had to
yeah.
wait another 5 years or 3 to 5 years for the final book to come out. Same thing with Danger Girl. So
Yeah,
that's some wild stuff, right? So yeah, we tried to keep that stuff in mind when we were doing this Kickstarter, and I think that's how we're going to look at all of our future Kickstarters. Is just make sure that we self-contain them, so that we get them out in a timely period, and that it makes it worthwhile for a reader to back an issue and get a substantial amount of content slash reading as well too. So it's a bang for their
nice,
buck, right?
nice.
Yeah.
Awesome. We're coming to the section of the chat where I put you guys on the spot and ask you about top five pop culture things that you like. It's
Okay.
we can do it rapid fire, or we can do it, you know, the long way. Whatever you guys prefer.
Whatever you feel like you are. I'm good with either.
Yeah. Oh, and question: does it have to be? Is it just a thing, or is it also like a brand, or like, or is it just completely open?
It's completely open, so you can do like a movie or a game or a comic book or a TV show, uh, whatever you like. To be honest,
Okay.
yeah,
All right, Vaughn.
yeah.
I'm gonna go first.
All right.
I'll give you my five. This is in no particular order.
Mm-hmm.
Um, anything where Tom Cruise is running. Okay, so if he's running in a film, you got my money.
Yeah.
I love Spider Man and have from the time I was a kid. Love James Bond.
Mm-hmm.
So what is that? Three.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
I totally love cop shows, particularly
Nice.
from like the '70s and into the '80s. So like, we just had a stream. Vaughn and I were talking about Miami Vice being 40 years,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so anything like that where it's like prestige TV. So even going into things like The Wire and The Sopranos and whatnot, I'm
Yeah.
totally there. And
Nice.
I guess number five would just be reading comics.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great list, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
fantastic.
All
What
right.
about
My
you,
turn.
Juan?
Okay.
Yeah.
So yes, I guess no particular order. Top five, right?
Yep.
Okay. So top five. Right now, I'm kind of obsessed with the idea of what it takes to get like a publishing company to a certain point and how to increase your numbers. So that's kind of more self indulgent, but that's one of the things that I've been looking into quite a bit. Um, Number two, I've been really digging a lot of the current climate around the idea that comics are kind of getting a second life in regards to a lot of the indie publish. Some of these indie publishers are getting really great numbers as well too.
Yep.
A lot of new platforms are arising as well too from that. So that's great to see. Um, I just enjoying the con scene as well too. The cons, they're tiring, but when you actually get to meet up with everybody and connect with everybody, it's its own little like carny community as well too. So that's
Yeah.
always great. Um, and really, right now, my day job, which is my web stuff, is really also one of my biggest things that I'm really obsessed with right now, and trying to take that
Nice.
business to the next level as much as I can as well too. So,
That's
yes, those are
fantastic.
my five.
Nice.
Oh,
Nice.
I'm going to substitute one. Oh, I'm going to
Yeah.
substitute honorable mention. Right now, I've been watching this HBO show. It's a little bit geeky. It's called Industry. You haven't
Oh, I
watched
so
it?
want to
Okay.
get to that.
It's
That's
a
on
it's a
my
great
list.
show. It's not for the faint of heart in regards to its like it's high level, but it's really intriguing at how to the dynamic of the characters of how they're interacting. There's a lot
Okay.
of like the writing is really deep. It's a lot of like Succession type stuff in there too, Steve. In
Hmm.
regards to how they're writing the characters, they're not just like one note characters. There's
Right.
really interplay and dynamics in that. So that's a really interesting character study of a TV show that I've been really obsessed with. And I'm sad that it's only ever like 8 episodes a season. Um,
Hmm.
Oh, the
so
British
that's
style, right?
yeah. So and it is a British show as well too.
Oh,
It's
okay.
HBO, but it's being production out of UK right now.
Okay, that
So
makes
that's one
sense.
of my new
Interesting.
obsessions that I really like as well.
Yeah, you did mention earlier that the shows these days are like much higher production quality, smaller
Yeah,
seasons. They're and like that was the thing with the bear as well, right? Like it was so
yeah,
well
there as well too.
produced.
Mhm.
Yeah, but it's such a short series. You can actually you can't binge watch Bear. It's too heavy to binge
Yeah,
watch. But but you can finish it within a
you can
week.
finish it pretty easily.
Yeah,
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 no time.
yeah. Awesome. We're coming close to time, but before we go, I would love for you guys to take the stage and do like an elevator pitch for the book. Tell the people why they would back this book. You know.
All right, Steve, take it away.
All right. Well, if you're into action, suspense, horror, you want a thrill ride, then Atrium is the book for you. The art is fantastic. The story is gripping. I can tell you that from the artist's point of view, he's had a couple of issues with me because there's some characters that he wanted to see continue and wanted to continue drawing. He did not get the opportunity to do that because of the way the story goes. So it's one of those stories where it's don't fall in love with anybody because you never know who's going to make it. But it is a thrill ride. We tried to make it as cinematic as possible, and we think we've delivered based on all of the feedback from shows. You will not be disappointed.
That's awesome. Awesome. Thanks for coming on the show, guys.
Thanks for having
And
us.
oh, totally appreciate it. And all the best for
Cool.
rest of your campaign
No
to
problem. Thank
back
you for having
this.
us.
No worries. Awesome. Till next time. Bye.
All right,
Or
take
have
care,
a good one.
everyone.
Bye bye.